live from Juba, on air and online.
This is iRadio News.
Hello, this is iRadio 1 o'clock news. First, here are the headlines. A gunman has assassinated the Director General of Upper Nile State Ministry of Housing, Land and Public Utilities, John Okony-Yor. The SPLM-IO has expressed concerns over the continuous intimidation of its members and supporters across the country. The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says at least 95 civilians were killed in eastern Equatoria State and Greater Piboro Administrative Area in July alone. These stories and more coming to you in this news bulletin with me, Lugala Mulai, and now the news in detail. A gunman has assassinated the Director General of Upper Nile State Ministry of Housing, Land and Public Utilities, John Okony-Yor. The State Police Commissioner, Major General Chola Tem, told iRadio Yor was shot dead at his home in Malakal town last evening at 8 p.m. Major General Atem said the assailant escaped after committing the crime. The motive of the killing is unknown. However, Atem said the police are investigating the incident and has called on the residents to remain calm. He spoke to iRadio from Malakal town this morning.
ده الحادث حصلت امبارح في النص الساعة 8 ده في حي الجلابة هناك وراء المستشفى حوادث ما في زول قبضه المرتكب جريمة ده طبعا وحرق عمل جريمة ده ضرب زول اسمه جون أوكوني-يور في نفس الوقت جاء طبعا في الزمن ده لما بيحصل برد حتما الناس ما بقعد الناس كلهم بيكونوا جارين فالتحديد طبعا جاري لانه الامن طبعا بيبحث عن المرتكب الجريمه زول اللي مرتكب الجريمه ده الناس بيبحثوا عنه المفروض تكون في حدود يعني المشاكل زي ده لما بتحصل يخلوه في يد الامن او الحكومه يبحث.
The latest incident is the third involving influential people in Malakal town. Last year, a top SSPDF, Arop Okeo, and peace activist Juliana Ambrose were shot dead while returning home from a market in the town. The same year, armed individuals shot at people who were turned up for the reception of the new state governor, Budoka Yang. Three people, including a woman, were killed as a result. In July 2020, a public prosecutor, Thomas Sabana Cole, was killed by armed assailants in the area. Since then, no culprits have been identified and punished for the crimes. The SPLM-IO has reiterated concerns over the continuous arbitrary intimidation of its members across the country. Regina Joseph Kaba, the Peace Party Secretary General, cited the recent detention of some SPLM-IO members by security forces in Lake State. Kaba had led a delegation last week to Rumbek town when some of her team members were arrested upon their arrival in the area. The chairperson of the State Human Rights Commission, Malok Makol Bol, was among those arrested. Some of their supporters were also rounded up and taken to unknown locations. Kaba said their supporters were wearing an SPLM-IO blue t-shirt when they were apprehended, an allegation Lake State spokesperson denied. She said on the SPLM-IG to follow up. She called on the SPLM-IG to follow up the freedom of expression and open political space as enshrined in both the Revitalized Peace Agreement and the interim constitution. Kaba also stressed that people have the right to choose their political parties and without interference of the security apparatus.
What we noticed in Lakes, there is really a very limited political space. So it started with the arresting of the chairperson of the human rights by the security organ, and then following by detaining some of the MPs who are IO members, and detaining members who were in blue. So people in blue were arrested just because they belong to SPLM-IO. So we are really calling upon the Lakes State government to open the political space for the citizen. We are all parties to this agreement. So we are really calling upon them and to all states to open up the political space.
4 months before the incident, the SPLM IO Commissioner of Ural West County resigned from his position due to humiliation by the state governor, Ring Tweny. Last month, the SPLM party accused the main opposition, SPLM IO, of denying it from campaigning in some counties under the control of its commanders, an accusation Machar's party refuted. Freedom of expression is a right protected by the Transitional Constitution of South Sudan. Article 24 of the South Sudan Transitional Constitution states that every citizen shall have the right to freedom of expression, reception and dissemination of information, publication and access to the press without prejudice to public order, safety or morals as prescribed by the law. The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says at least 95 civilians were killed in eastern Equatoria State and Greater Pibor Administrative Area in July alone. According to its latest humanitarian report released on Tuesday, 80 people were killed in Kapoita North and 15 in Gumruk counties respectively. The killings occurred because of cattle raiding and ethnic clashes. OCHA says more than 17,500 people were also displaced in eastern Equatoria and 1,700 people in Greater Pibor Administrative Area due to the violence. It stated that in July, food insecurity, intercommunal violence, conflict and disease outbreaks persisted and will continue to worsen. The UN body said that worrying food insecurity situation in Longochuk County, Upper Nile State, forced some 5,000 people to move to neighboring Maywood County in July. It added that the torrential rain and floods affected nearly 2,400 people in the IDP site, Twitch County in Warrap. You are listening to iRadio News. The primate of the Episcopal Church of South Sudan says the former Archbishop of Jonglei Internal Province, Akurdit, is back to his community as a retired church leader. Last month, Ruben Akurdit returned to Bor for the first time since January, claiming the office of the president had permitted him to resume his religious duties. Archbishop Ruben Akurdit and his rival cleric Moses Anur were called to Juba following tension between their supporters at the onset of this year. This is after he rejected his sacking and decided to dismiss his successor, urging his removal was unjustified. But speaking to the media yesterday, Archbishop Justin Badi, who just returned from the UK, says Ruben Akurdit returned to Bor was to stay with his family. The head of the ECSS says that Akurdit has reached a retirement age.
Akurdit is our elder and he is from Jongole. He has all the right to go back to Jongole, to his people, to stay with his family. We have no problem with that. In regard to the church, Akurdit has been defrocked. Akurdit has reached retirement age. We have no problem with him within the Anglican Church of South Sudan. So his going back to Jongole doesn't mean that we have restored him. He has gone back as a retired person to be with his family.
Finally, before moving to stories making headlines in the region and the international scene, the chairperson of Jonglei Civil Society Network says civil servants have started receiving a 2-month salary following days of protest. Boldeng Bol said the state government released salaries for 2 months out of 5 months arrears. The civil servants initially demanded on Saturday. The move follows series of strikes and peaceful demonstrations organized by the state labor union, including Workers' Trade Union and Teachers Union in the state capital, Bor. However, Bol said the state authorities are still holding 3 leaders of the protesting civil servants. They arrested while organizing the protest last Friday.
So the issue has left now with the salaries and the people who are detained. But the issue of salaries also, the 2 salaries were released, and so they are receiving their 2 months. The civil servants are receiving, and so that's why we even appeal to the government. Why then keep these people in detention? Yet what they wanted was that their salaries are released. So if you still keep them in, we should be given a reason why you're keeping them in. Is there anything else they've committed? They released on the 13th, which is a Saturday, and 3 were arrested on the 12th, which is Friday.
You are listening to iRadio News. Now to stories making headlines in the region and the international scene, brought to you by MTN. Here is Susan.
Aku, ita kijeron bashan ta kibir zede. Ita der safir wita mader weri lena.
Aku, hana magi safir. Hana gifiri su mahal tahwilu gurus. Sante de malian gurus. Gubal mujirima maligana. Handira sulu gurus fi wilayat.
Ita lisa wara zede. Ita lisa vitab ta jere rasul gurus gubudu gurus fi senta. Ita maruf gali MTN jibulen na momo fi belede.
Aku, mumu de biga sunu kaman. Besara na cave zado.
Momo de MTN mobile money. Be MTN mobile money de ita bak de rafi su gurus taki de kulu fi jo telefon take. Wita bak de rasul le ay zone alindo account MTN mobile money de fi ay zaman u fi ay waqt dalta der. Ashanta fi fata hisab ma momo MTN mobile money lazim kelta dusu nejma 200 selim wita bilgo ke tirmin malumat al bisaidi ta kef ta fi fata hisab take.
In now to the stories making headline in the region and in the international scene. Tanzania's state telecommunications firm has installed high-speed internet connectivity on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, Africa's highest mountain, through a national broadband project. Information Minister Nape Nnauye launched the internet project on Tuesday, saying tourists will soon be able to communicate worldwide from the summit of the mountain. The mountain is one of Tanzania's leading tourist destinations. Mr. Nnauye said internet connectivity on the mountain was expected to reach its highest point, Uhuru Peak, at 5,859 meters above sea level in October. Elsewhere, a TikTok user is being investigated after posting a video on the app allegedly threatening to kill patients, Ghana's Nursing and Midwifery Council said. The TikToker is said to be a nursing student in the country. In the video, she appeared in a nursing school uniform and claimed she will kill any client who seeks her service as a nurse because she was forced to pursue nursing against her will. And finally, voters in U.S. state of Wyoming have hosted Congresswoman Liz Cheney, a rare Republican critic of former President Donald Trump, in a primary election. She has been trashed by a relative political newcomer and Trump-backed candidate Harriet Hageman. Ms. Cheney, 56, was one of the only two members of her party to join the congressional committee investigating Mr. Trump's attempts to cling to power. The three-term congresswoman was once a rising Republican star. This is the end of stories making headlines in the region and in the international scene.
And yes, from the stories making headlines in the region and the international scene to the world of sports, here is Moyo Jacob Felix.
Good afternoon, Lugala Mulai. In football, women's football in Europe could have a commercial value of 578 million euros a year by 2023, UEFA says. New research by the governing body forecasts a potential six-fold increase in the figure during the next decade. The fan base for the game could rise from 144 million to 328 million across that period, according to projections making the case for investment. Nadine Kessler, UEFA's head of women's football, said the game is seeing an incredibly exciting level of growth. And in athletics, Great Britain's Daryl Nater won bronze as Diana Asher-Smith pulled up with cramp in the European women's 100 meters after Olympic champion Lamont Marshall-Jacobs won the men's race in Munich. A three-time European gold medalist in 2018, Asher-Smith slowed after 60 meters because of cramps in both her calves. Italy's Jacobs ran 9.95 seconds to beat British defending champion Sanel Hodges 9.99 to the men's title. Teammate Jeremiah Asu ran a personal best 10.13 to take bronze. And finally in tennis, British number one Emma Raducanu put a dampener on Serena Williams' farewell tour after thrashing the American great in the Cincinnati Open first round. Williams, 40, plans to retire after the US Open, which starts on 29th August, and lost 6-4, 6-0 in what is said to be the ultimate event of her career. The 23-time Grand Slam champion lacked sharpness, and her 19-year-old opponent punished her in a composed display. Reigning US Open champion Raducanu will play Victoria Azarenka in round 2. End of the sports news, and back to you, Lugala Mulai, in the studio.
Thank you very much, Moyo Jacob Felix, for taking us through what is happening in the world of sports. You are listening to our radio news. Now, to end this bulletin, here are the headlines once again. A gunman has assassinated the Director General of Upper Nile State Ministry of Housing, Land and Public Utilities, John Okonyor. The SPLM-IO has expressed concerns over the continuous intimidation of its members and supporters across the country. The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says at least 95 civilians were killed in eastern Equatoria State and Greater Pibor Administrative Area in July alone. That is the end of iRadio Afternoon News. If there's a story or an event you would like iRadio to cover or report about, please send us a text message on +211 925 286 287 870. It's also our WhatsApp number. Follow us on Twitter at iRadio Juba. Like our Facebook page, iRadio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at iRadio South Sudan. You can also visit our website and listen to us online at www.iradio.org. Stay tuned for the news in Arabic at 1:30. I had been Lugala Mulai. Thanks for listening.